Security, remove this useless woman. My stepfather said that into a microphone in front of 200 guests at my mother's retirement gala in Miami. And my mother, standing right beside him in a custom emerald gown, looked at the marble floor and said nothing. I did not argue. I did not cry. I set down the silver-framed photograph I brought as a gift, turned around, and walked out the grand double doors. Within 45 minutes, I sat in the driver's seat of my 7-year-old Honda Civic, connected to a mobile hotspot, and executed a digital transfer. I moved $15 million into a sole beneficiary trust Gregory did not know existed, and then I turned off my phone. When I powered it back on, there were 56 missed calls, and my entire family was pounding on my apartment door. But they were not there to apologize. They were there because a single legal document they had never seen just collapsed 20 years of my stepfather's careful financial planning. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe to Eldenly Stories, but only if you genuinely connect with this kind of truth. Drop a comment telling me your age, and if you have ever had to set a hard boundary with toxic family members. My name is Mia Wilson. I am 33 years old, and this is the exact night I stopped being the invisible daughter. Now let me take you back 8 months to the day I uncovered the secret holding their world together. My biological father was a quiet but brilliant Florida land investor. He died when I was young, leaving my mother Patricia a comfortable life. But comfortable was never enough for her. She married Gregory, a private equity developer who wore luxury watches and craved the Miami high society spotlight. Gregory immediately went to work erasing my father's memory. My mother allowed it because Gregory offered her a kingdom of country clubs and charity galas. To them, my life was an embarrassment. I work as a wetlands ecologist for an Everglades conservation nonprofit. I make $62,000 a year. I spend my days tracking water levels and studying mangrove roots. I come home tired and covered in the reality of my work. Meanwhile, my younger half-sister Madison works as a public relations executive. Her job is a vanity title subsidized by Gregory so she can buy designer clothes and attend yacht parties. The contrast was a constant source of tension. I was the family secret they tried to keep out of sight. I was pushed to the edges of every holiday dinner. When Madison got engaged to a wealthy socialite last spring, my mother called me with a simple instruction. She told me Madison thought it would be best if I did not attend the engagement dinner. She said my career choice might send the wrong message to the future in-laws. She told me to stay home, but in the very same breath asked me to transfer $5,000 to help cover the floral arrangement since I had no family of my own to support. I transferred the money without a fight. I swallowed the insult because I thought keeping the peace meant being a good daughter. I did not know then that their luxury life, their parties, their cars, and their unearned confidence were funded by a safe deposit box my biological father left behind. A box I found exactly 8 months before Gregory told security to throw me out. I spend most of my days waist-deep in the Florida Everglades. My boots sink into thick, dark mud while the afternoon sun beats down on my neck. I measure salinity levels. I track the health of the mangrove roots. I document the slow, steady pulse of an ancient environment. Mangroves are fascinating. They thrive in harsh, salty conditions. Their intertwined roots hold the coastline together during severe hurricanes. They provide a silent, unbreakable foundation for the entire ecosystem. I understand foundations. I know how they support life, and I understand what happens when they begin to rot from the inside out. My official job title is Wetlands Ecologist for a state conservation nonprofit organization. I earn $62,000 a year. In most parts of the country, that is a respectable, comfortable salary. A person can build a solid, honest life on that kind of money. I pay my own rent, I cover my own bills, I ask for nothing. But I do not live in most parts of the country. I live in the sprawling neon shadow of Miami high society. And to my mother, Patricia, and my stepfather, Gregory, my career choice is a blue-collar tragedy. Gregory made his vast fortune in private equity and luxury real estate development. He builds towering glass condominiums for billionaires on the waterfront. He shakes hands with local politicians and drinks imported scotch that costs more than my entire monthly grocery budget. Patricia reinvented herself years ago to fit his glamorous world perfectly. She traded her modest past for charity board seats, exclusive tennis club memberships, and designer wardrobes. In their curated circle, worth is measured exclusively by the logo stamped on your handbag and the prestigious zip code attached to your mortgage. I never fit into their golden equation. My presence was an ongoing social inconvenience they had to manage. Over the years, I watched them systematically push me out of the frame. The exclusion did not happen overnight. It happened in slow, agonizing inches. It started with the holiday seating chart. When I was a teenager, I always sat right next to my mother. By my late 20s, my place setting was shifted to the far end of the long dining table. 2 years ago, during our annual family Thanksgiving dinner, I was seated at a smaller secondary table near the swinging kitchen doors. Patricia claimed the change was purely logistical. She said they needed to accommodate Gregory's new influential business partners. She smiled her tight, practiced, diplomatic smile and told me I would be much more comfortable away from the loud corporate conversation anyway. She said the men were discussing bond yields and zoning permits, subjects I supposedly could not grasp. I said nothing. I picked up my porcelain plate, walked to the small table, and ate my meal while listening to the kitchen staff clear dishes. Then there is Madison. My younger half-sister is the undisputed golden child of the family. 26 years old with perfect blonde highlights and a vanity job as a public relations executive. Madison attends exclusive yacht parties and posts sponsored photographs from 5-star tropical resorts. She calls herself a self-made businesswoman. The harsh truth is Gregory secured her corporate position through a high-level favor. He also subsidizes her luxury waterfront condo and pays off her exorbitant credit card bills every single month. She has never faced a real consequence in her entire life. Last Christmas, I drove to their Coral Gables estate for a mandatory family brunch. The circular brick driveway was lined with imported luxury vehicles belonging to their elite friends. I parked my 7-year-old Honda Civic at the very end of the line near the street. The clear coat paint was peeling on the rear bumper. As I walked up the manicured stone path, Madison stepped out the front double doors with her socialite fiancé. She wore a pristine white silk jumpsuit without a single wrinkle. She paused on the marble steps and looked past my shoulder at my sedan. "Cute ride, Mia," she said. Her voice dripped with that specific brand of fake sweetness designed to draw blood without leaving a mark. "It is very rugged. Perfectly suited for someone who plays in the dirty swamp all day." Her fiancé chuckled softly, adjusting his expensive sunglasses. I looked at the brand new Range Rover sitting in the prime parking spot near the fountain. The exact vehicle Gregory bought her as a simple graduation present. I could have pointed out that my car was paid off with my own hard-earned money. I could have mentioned that I saved up for it by working double shifts during my grueling graduate school program. Instead, I swallowed the insult. I forced a polite nod and walked inside the house. I believed keeping the peace was the honorable choice. I thought enduring their petty, superficial slights demonstrated emotional maturity. The psychological toll of those small, daily microaggressions piles up over time, like heavy river sediment. You convince yourself they are just tiny pebbles, but carry enough pebbles in your pockets and they will eventually break your back. The true staggering depth of their disdain became crystal clear when the annual family Christmas card arrived in my mailbox a week after that brunch. The family sends out a heavy foil-stamped greeting every December to 500 of their closest influential friends. I opened the thick envelope and stared at the glossy photograph. The image featured Gregory, Patricia, Madison, and her fiancé posing on the teak deck of a chartered sailboat. They looked radiant and wealthy. I was not in the picture. The hired photographer had grouped us all together initially during the shoot, but Patricia decided the visual composition was too crowded. She told me to step out for just a few quick test shots. Those so-called test shots became the official printed family portrait. When I called my mother to ask why she erased me, she sighed heavily into the phone receiver. "Mia, please do not be difficult," she said. Her tone implied my simple question was an exhausting burden. The sunlight was losing its edge, and you were wearing that plain navy sweater. Madison had a beautifully coordinated outfit with her fiancé. It just looked much more cohesive for the printers. "We are still a family. Do not make a huge deal out of a piece of paper." A piece of paper. That is exactly how she dismissed my literal erasure from our family history. I hung up the phone and sat alone in my small, quiet apartment, feeling the familiar burning sting of being deemed unworthy. They treated my existence as a rough draft they had long since discarded. I spent my early 30s trying to prove I deserved a permanent space in their orbit. I attended their lavish galas when summoned. I smiled politely when Gregory introduced me to his colleagues as the daughter who enjoys working outdoors. I bit my tongue when Madison offered unsolicited advice on my skincare routine, pretending she was doing me a generous favor. I accepted the assigned role of the quiet, disappointing relative. But the silent treatment only emboldens the oppressor. Every time I yielded ground, they took more territory. They assumed my silence meant I was weak and defeated. They mistook my long-suffering patience for powerlessness. They truly believed I had nowhere else to go and nothing of real value to offer the world. They were wrong. The entire foundation of their supreme arrogance was built on a profound financial lie they had kept buried since I was a young child. They thought I would never uncover the true hidden architecture of our family wealth. But secrets rarely stay buried forever in the dark. Especially when a regional bank sends a certified legal letter regarding an unclaimed, dormant safe deposit box. That specific letter arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning bearing my late biological father's name. It was the rusted key that unlocked their fragile kingdom. And it is time I told you exactly what I found inside the cold steel drawer. The certified letter concerning a dormant safe deposit box sat on my kitchen counter for 3 full days. I stared at the official bank seal every morning while drinking my coffee, before finally taking a few hours off from the conservation site to visit the regional branch. The building was old and unassuming, tucked away in a quiet Fort Lauderdale strip mall. It provided a stark visual contrast to the gleaming waterfront glass towers Gregory loved to build. The branch manager checked my identification, scrutinized my signature, and led me into the silent steel-lined vault. He handed me a heavy brass key and left me alone in the private viewing room. When I pulled the long metal drawer from the wall, the distinct scent of aged paper and dried leather filled the enclosed space. Inside lay a single thick manila envelope. My biological father, David, was not a flashy individual. He drove a modest, reliable truck and wore scuffed work boots every day. But he possessed a quiet, brilliant mind for predicting the trajectory of Florida real estate. While men like Gregory chased immediate headlines and high-profile skyline developments, my father quietly purchased undeveloped inland acres decades before the urban sprawl ever reached them. He let the city grow toward his investments. He understood the profound value of patience. I tipped the envelope over the polished wooden viewing table. A thick leather-bound binder slid out, accompanied by a handwritten note on yellow legal pad paper. The ink was faded, but the slanted, confident script was unmistakably his. For my clever girl. When the time is right, structure is everything. I opened the binder. 40 pages of dense, complex legal text stared back at me. The header read, "Irrevocable Trust Agreement." I am an ecologist, not a corporate lawyer, but you do not need an advanced law degree to understand the explicit gravity of your own name printed in bold ink alongside a staggering sequence of zeros. My hands shook slightly as I turned the heavy parchment pages. Section 4 explicitly outlined a segregated fund, $15 million, walled off, protected, designated solely for Mia Wilson effective upon her 30th birthday. I am 33 years old. This incredible sum of money had been sitting there fully vested and under my direct legal control for 3 entire years. Tucked safely behind the final signature page was a crisp business card, Harrison Sterling, attorney at law, trust and estate planning. His office address was listed in the financial heart of downtown Miami. I did not call my mother. I did not text my sister. I stepped out of the bank vault, walked straight to my car, and dialed the number printed on the card. Mr. Sterling answered on the second ring. He did not sound surprised to hear my voice. He sounded like a man who had been patiently watching a clock tick for a very long time. Miss Wilson, his deep, measured tone came through the speaker. I have kept this specific file sitting on the corner of my desk for over a decade. How soon can you get to Brickell Avenue? Downtown Miami operates on a specific kind of relentless corporate energy. Men in tailored European suits walk briskly to power lunches, while luxury imported sedans idle impatiently at crowded intersections. I navigated my worn Honda into a high-rise parking garage and took the express elevator to the 42nd floor. Sterling's office felt like a quiet sanctuary suspended far above the street-level chaos. Dark mahogany bookshelves lined the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding, sweeping view of Biscayne Bay. Harrison Sterling was a distinguished man in his late 60s. He had silver hair, sharp, observant eyes, and a professional demeanor that projected unbreakable confidentiality. He offered me a seat in a deep leather chair and poured 2 glasses of iced water from a glass pitcher. Your father was a true visionary! Sterling began folding his hands over the pristine surface of his desk. He knew Patricia was drawn to a lavish lifestyle he had zero interest in maintaining. He also anticipated that if she ever remarried, his hard-earned wealth might be absorbed by someone far less prudent. Sterling opened a matching leather folder revealing a copy of the exact document I had just read. David established the overarching Wilson Family Trust. That central entity holds the bulk of his estate, which Patricia and Gregory currently manage. However, your father was a structural genius. He carved out a specific legally impenetrable enclave hidden within that main trust, a segregated fund. Think of it like a reinforced titanium vault hidden inside a larger bank, Sterling explained, tracing a visual diagram he had sketched on a legal pad. The money physically sits in the same overarching account, which allows it to generate substantial compound interest. But legally, it is isolated. Patricia and Gregory cannot spend it. They cannot transfer it. As of your 30th birthday, you became the sole trustee of that $15 million portion. You possess unrestricted sole discretion over those funds. I stared at the ink diagram. The air conditioning in the room suddenly felt very cold against my skin. If they cannot spend it, why has my mother never mentioned it to me? Why hide my own inheritance? Sterling leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. The sharp cutting edge of the truth was about to surface, because they are using it as a ghost foundation. Gregory builds extravagant waterfront condominiums, correct? He requires immense liquid capital to fund those huge projects. He secures enormous commercial loans from major investment banks. To obtain those loans, he must prove he holds adequate collateral. The lending institutions look at the overarching family trust's bottom line. They see a ledger reflecting over $40 million. They do not look closely enough at the internal segregation clauses protecting your portion. Gregory has been pledging the entire collective trust, including your locked $15 million as collateral, to underwrite his highly leveraged development ventures and to fund Madison's exorbitant daily lifestyle. The disparate puzzle pieces snap together with terrifying clarity. The chartered yachts, the exclusive charity galas, Madison's pristine designer jumpsuits, the brand new Range Rover parked in the driveway. All of it rested on a fragile house of cards, and my deceased father had quietly handed me the bottom card. What happens, I asked, keeping my breathing steady if I exercise my right to withdraw my segregated funds today? Sterling offered a grim, precise smile. If you move your $15 million into a private independent account, the overarching trust's total asset value plummets overnight. Gregory's collateral ratio will instantly drop far below the bank's legally mandated threshold. The lenders will issue an immediate margin call. They will freeze every active credit line, every business operating account, and every personal platinum card tied to his name until the multi-million-dollar deficit is corrected. I sat back in the heavy leather chair and looked down at my hands. For years, I believed I was a familial burden, a blue-collar embarrassment they graciously tolerated during the holidays. I endured their sneers and accepted the small overflow table near the kitchen swinging doors because I genuinely thought they held all the structural power. I thought I was an unwanted guest living in their kingdom. I was not a guest. I was the hidden load-bearing pillar keeping their gilded roof from crashing down on their heads. They have no idea I possess this authority, I asked. Patricia knows the segregated fund exists, but she believes she successfully hid the original documentation from you, Sterling replied. Gregory likely assumes the entire financial pot is his to leverage freely. Your father intentionally designed the legal provisions so that neither of them receives automatic notifications when you reach the vesting age. He wanted you to discover the truth on your own terms. I looked out the window at the sprawling Miami skyline. A dozen towering yellow cranes pivoted slowly over new construction sites, building fragile, expensive monuments for people operating on too much unearned confidence. I felt a profound, chilling sense of calm wash over my entire body. I did not want to drive to Coral Gables and scream at my mother. I did not want to throw a dramatic temper tantrum in Gregory's pristine driveway. Emotional outbursts were their preferred weapon of choice. They thrived on chaotic theatrical drama. My weapon was arithmetic. I am not moving the money today, Mr. Sterling, I said, standing up and smoothing the front of my work slacks. Sterling raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by my restraint. Patience is a rare trait, Miss Wilson. What exactly are you waiting for? A reason, I answered, meeting his sharp gaze. I want to see exactly how far they are willing to push me before I pull the floor out from under them. I left his towering office building with a certified copy of the trust agreement tucked safely inside my tote bag. I drove back to my modest apartment while the heavy Florida heat pressed against my windshield. I had the financial launch codes. I had the airtight legal authority. I just needed to watch them dig their own inevitable grave. And I would not have to wait long, because less than a month later, the next layer of this toxic dynamic would reveal itself. Madison was actively planning her high society engagement dinner, and Patricia was about to make a phone call that would seal their financial doom. 3 weeks passed since my meeting with Harrison Sterling. Springtime in South Florida thickens the air with heavy humidity. At the conservation nonprofit, we enter our busiest season, conducting intensive ecological surveys across the northern Everglades. My days are consumed by analyzing wetland degradation and drafting environmental protection reports. I find deep, genuine fulfillment in repairing what others carelessly break. But while I focus on preserving natural habitats, my family is entirely consumed by climbing the artificial social ladder. The catalyst for their latest cruelty involves a man named Preston. Madison met him 6 months ago at an exclusive charity regatta. Preston is the youngest son of a prominent Boston shipping family. He represents old generational wealth. He possesses a trust fund, a polished accent, and an effortless arrogance that perfectly matches Madison's superficial ambitions. To my mother, Patricia, Preston is the ultimate grand prize. He is the golden ticket that will finally legitimize their status among the true elite, rather than just the newly rich real estate crowd. The wedding preparations quickly become a chaotic, obsessive spectacle. Madison demands an opulent engagement dinner at a highly restricted waterfront yacht club in South Beach. The guest list is strictly curated to include only the most influential politicians, wealthy investors, and local celebrities. Patricia treats the upcoming event like a critical military operation. Every detail must project an illusion of flawless, unlimited prosperity. I observe this manic behavior from a safe distance, assuming I will simply attend the dinner, sit quietly in a dark corner, and leave early. I am entirely wrong. The phone rings on a hushed Thursday evening. I am sitting at my scarred wooden dining table reviewing complex water salinity spreadsheets. My work boots are kicked off near the front door, still caked in gray marsh mud. The caller identification displays my mother's name. I answer the call, bracing myself for a mundane complaint about caterers or floral arrangements. Patricia does not bother with a warm, polite greeting. She launches directly into a calculated offensive maneuver. Mia, she begins, her voice projecting that breezy, artificial cadence she always uses when she is about to deliver a profound insult. Madison and I were reviewing the final seating chart for the engagement dinner next weekend. Preston's parents are flying down from Massachusetts. They are incredibly traditional conservative people, very focused on corporate pedigree and pristine social standing. You understand how these delicate situations work, right? I stare at my laptop screen. I tell her I am listening. I refuse to offer her an easy, graceful exit. I force her to articulate the ugly truth out loud. Patricia releases a sharp, dramatic sigh of engineered exasperation. Madison feels it might be best if you skip the yacht club dinner, she finally admits. We simply do not want to spend the entire evening trying to explain why you play in the swamp mud for a living. Your career choice is incredibly blue-collar. It might send the wrong message to Preston's sophisticated family. We need to present a unified, highly successful front. The sheer audacity of the statement echoes in the small room. My own mother is uninviting me from my sister's major life milestone because my honest, honorable profession does not fit into their fabricated narrative of limitless luxury. I look around my modest apartment. The walls feature framed botanical prints. The furniture is practical and worn. I am fiercely proud of my life. I am proud of the vital environmental work I perform every single day. Yet my own flesh and blood considers my mere existence a reputational liability. I do not argue. I do not defend my career. I tell her I understand perfectly. I understand that Patricia values the superficial approval of absolute strangers far more than the emotional well-being of her eldest child. I expect her to disconnect the call right then. The cruel exclusionary errand is complete. But Patricia remains on the line. She smoothly pivots to a different topic without skipping a single heartbeat. The psychological whiplash is entirely intentional. Since we are already discussing upcoming family events, Patricia continues, her tone suddenly brightening. I wanted to talk about my retirement gala next month. Gregory is handling the ballroom rental and the catering costs, but the master floral designer is demanding an exorbitant upfront retainer. The imported white orchids alone are costing a fortune. I think it is only fair that you contribute $5,000 to the event planner tomorrow morning. I stop typing on my keyboard. I stare at the glowing screen of my mobile phone. My mother has just barred me from a family celebration, and in the exact same breath she is demanding a significant sum of my personal hard-earned money to fund a different lavish party I am barely welcome to attend. I ask her gently why Gregory cannot simply cover the floral deposit with his vast real estate wealth. Patricia immediately adopts a tone of wounded, self-righteous martyrdom. Gregory does so much for this family already, she insists, her voice rising in defensive indignation. He pays the mortgage on Madison's luxury condominium. He is underwriting the vast majority of her extravagant wedding costs. You live all alone, Mia. You have no husband. You have no children. You do not have a real family of your own to support. You should be grateful for the opportunity to pitch in and honor your mother. After all, what else are you possibly spending your little salary on? The condescending phrase, little salary, rings loudly in my ears. I make $62,000 a year. $5,000 represents an enormous percentage of my liquid emergency savings. To Patricia and Gregory, that amount is equivalent to the cost of a casual weekend boat charter. To me, it represents months of careful, strict budgeting. Before my secret meeting with Harrison Sterling, I might have felt a crushing, suffocating wave of profound injustice. I might have cried hot, angry tears. I might have tried to desperately defend my financial independence. But the underlying power dynamic has fundamentally shifted. I am no longer a helpless, dependent victim trapped inside their web of financial abuse. I am a woman quietly holding the master keys to a $15 million vault. I picture the detailed structural diagram Sterling drew on his yellow legal pad. I remember the exact hidden mechanism of the overarching family trust. I realize Patricia is boldly extorting me for $5,000 while she and Gregory are actively leveraging my own multi-million-dollar inheritance to keep their fake, fragile empire afloat. I tell Patricia I will transfer the funds. I hear the palpable, immediate relief in her voice. She quickly rattles off the complicated wire transfer instructions and ends the call with a hollow, cheerful goodbye. I sit in the dim light of my living room. I open my secure banking application and initiate the outbound transfer. The money leaves my checking account. It hurts to watch the balance drop so drastically, but I consider the transaction a necessary strategic investment. It is the required cost of purchasing my own front-row ticket to their imminent spectacular destruction. The stark juxtaposition of my daily reality versus theirs is almost poetic. I spend the remainder of the evening grading detailed ecological field reports on a thrift store sofa, eating a simple dinner of leftover roasted vegetables. Meanwhile, miles away in Coral Gables, my mother and sister are sipping imported champagne, plotting how to impress a wealthy shipping heir using borrowed funds they do not truly own. They believe they are entirely untouchable. They believe they have successfully marginalized me while continuing to endlessly extract my limited resources. They fundamentally mistake my quiet compliance for weak submission. My extreme patience is not cowardice. It is a calculated silent countdown. Every single dollar they take from me, every cruel insult they hurl, every dinner invitation they revoke, merely adds another heavy brick to the impenetrable fortress I am building around myself. I am keeping the receipts. I am letting them indulge their supreme, blinding entitlement, because the higher they climb on that precarious mountain of arrogance, the harder the eventual unavoidable fall will be. The requested floral transfer creates an unexpected minor logistical complication. The prestigious event planner requires a physical handwritten signature on a specific liability waiver regarding the rare imported orchids. Because my name is formally attached to the funding invoice, my mother insists I drive directly to the Coral Gables estate to sign the paperwork in person. She schedules this mundane errand for a Tuesday afternoon when she assumes Gregory will be out playing his weekly golf game and Madison will be occupied at her public relations office. I agree to make the long drive across the city. I do not know it yet, but this simple administrative chore will expose the darkest, most desperate layer of their ongoing financial deception. They think they are simply forcing the useless daughter to complete their tedious errands. They do not realize they are inviting a silent, dangerous auditor into the very room where they hide their most damning secrets. When I arrive at that sprawling mansion, I will find something sitting entirely unattended on Gregory's heavy oak desk. Something that proves they know exactly who holds the real unyielding power. The drive to Coral Gables takes nearly an hour in heavy afternoon traffic. The transition from my neighborhood to my mother's enclave is always a jarring visual shift. The modest stucco homes fade away, replaced by towering banyan trees and wrought iron security gates. Gregory purchased the sprawling Mediterranean-style estate shortly after the wedding. It features 12 bedrooms, a private tennis court, and a manicured hedge maze that requires a full-time landscaping crew. The property is designed to intimidate visitors. It broadcasts an unmistakable message of superior wealth and untouchable status. I pull my vehicle up to the front entrance. The imposing mahogany doors are unlocked. I step inside the cavernous foyer. The air conditioning is set so low it feels like a museum archive. A vast crystal chandelier hangs suspended from the domed ceiling, casting fragmented light across the imported Italian marble floors. The house is eerily quiet. I call out for my mother, but receive no answer. Maria, the longtime housekeeper, appears from the kitchen hallway, wiping her hands on an apron. She tells me Patricia ran out to a last-minute fitting at a bridal boutique with Madison. The liability paperwork for the floral designer is waiting on Gregory's desk in his private study. I thank Maria and walk down the long corridor toward the back of the house. Gregory's home office is a shrine to his own ego. The walls are lined with framed magazine covers featuring his real estate developments. A custom mahogany desk dominates the center of the room. I spot the floral waiver sitting exactly where Maria said it would be. I pick up the pen provided and sign my name on the dotted line, finalizing my $5,000 contribution to a party I am barely tolerated at. As I place the pen down, my eyes catch something sitting near the edge of the leather blotter. It is a thick manila folder. The top cover is slightly askew, revealing the crisp white legal document underneath. The bold black font at the top of the page acts like a magnet, pulling my attention downward. Draft Trust Amendment. My breath catches in my throat. I know I should turn around and walk out of the room. Prying into private correspondence is a dangerous game. But the primal instinct of self-preservation takes over. I gently slide the manila cover aside. The document bears the letterhead of a law firm I do not recognize. It is not Harrison Sterling's prestigious downtown firm. This is a boutique agency known for handling highly questionable offshore accounts and navigating aggressive corporate loopholes. I read the first introductory paragraph. The legal jargon is dense, but the underlying intent is crystal clear. The drafted amendment specifically references the exact segregated fund established by my biological father. It names me as the primary beneficiary. Then I read the proposed alteration clauses. Gregory and his shady attorney are actively attempting to restructure the irrevocable trust. They are citing a fabricated provision claiming I lack the financial competency to manage such a substantial sum. The document outlines a direct transfer of the $15 million into a new holding account. The sole designated recipient of that new account is Madison. My pulse pounds in my temples. The sheer scale of the betrayal is staggering. They are not satisfied with simply banishing me from family events or extorting me for floral deposits. Gregory has realized the ticking clock counting down to my financial independence. He knows my 30th birthday passed 3 years ago, and the funds are fully vested. He is terrified I might discover the truth and withdraw the load bearing collateral, keeping his fragile real estate empire afloat. So he is plotting a preemptive strike. He intends to steal my inheritance quietly, legally, and permanently. I do not panic. Panic implies a loss of control. I am an ecologist. When I encounter a toxic invasive species in the wetlands, I do not scream. I document the threat and prepare a systematic eradication plan. I pull my cellular phone from my pocket. I open the camera application and disable the flash. I carefully photograph every single page of the drafted amendment, making sure the law firm logo and Gregory's handwritten margin notes are perfectly legible. I slide the manila cover back into its original position, leaving the desk exactly as I found it. I walk out of the mansion feeling a strange, profound sense of calm. The unspoken family war has escalated from petty social exclusion to outright criminal fraud. I return to my car, lock the doors, and dial Harrison Sterling's number. I do not wait for him to offer a polite greeting. I tell him Gregory is attempting to forge an amendment to steal the segregated funds. Sterling remains silent for a long, heavy moment. The gravity of the situation settles between us. That is a highly illegal maneuver, Miss Wilson. He finally says, his voice dropping an octave. Your father's trust is irrevocable. Gregory has zero authority to alter the designated beneficiaries. However, if he secures a corrupt judge and submits fabricated competency evaluations, he might tie the funds up in prolonged litigation. We cannot allow him to file that paperwork. I agree. I tell Sterling I want to finalize the digital transfer protocols immediately. I want the loaded gun placed directly in my hand. Sterling patches my call through to a senior fiduciary manager at the banking institution. For the next 40 minutes, I sit in the sweltering heat of my parked car, authenticating my identity and establishing a secure encrypted portal. The bank assigns me a unique 12-digit alphanumeric authorization code. Whenever I decide to execute the command, the $15 million will move from Gregory's control into a private account solely in my name within 45 minutes. The fiduciary manager issues a stern professional warning before disconnecting. Miss Wilson, you must understand the immediate domino effect of this action. When that money moves, the Central Family Trust will lose its primary collateral base. The automated banking software will instantly calculate the deficit. A margin call will trigger across all linked accounts. Every platinum credit card, every country club membership, and every corporate line of credit tied to your stepfather will freeze instantly. The financial fallout will be catastrophic and highly public. I stare at the steering wheel. I process the immense weight of the manager's words. I hold the power to dismantle my family's entire existence with a few simple keystrokes. The temptation to input the codes right there in the driveway is powerful. I could destroy Gregory's empire before he even returns from his golf game. I could watch the panic unfold from the safety of my own apartment. But I pause. I look back at the sprawling Mediterranean estate. My biological father built his wealth through patience and careful observation. I decide to honor his legacy. I will not launch a preemptive hidden strike. I want them to see it coming. I want them to understand exactly why their kingdom falls. The upcoming retirement gala represents the perfect, unavoidable crossroad. It is the pinnacle of my mother's social ambitions. It is the very event she extorted me to help fund. I decide to set one final definitive test. I will put on a nice dress and attend that party. I will walk into the grand ballroom surrounded by the shallow elite peers they worship. I will give Patricia one last genuine opportunity to act like a true mother. If she defends me just once, if she stops Gregory from hurling his usual cruel insults, if she acknowledges my presence and treats me with basic human dignity, I will leave the money alone. I will walk away and let them keep their fragile illusion. But if she chooses to stand by while I am humiliated, if she participates in my public erasure, then I will know the truth beyond any shadow of a doubt. The biological tie will be permanently severed. The trap is now fully set. The mechanism is locked and loaded. Gregory thinks he is plotting the perfect heist against a naive, helpless target. He has no idea the quiet daughter he so deeply despises is already holding the detonator. I start the engine of my car and drive away from the mansion. The countdown to the retirement gala has officially begun. The tension tightening in my chest feels less like anxiety and more like inevitable justice preparing to finally run its course. The week leading up to the retirement gala feels like the heavy, humid air just before a Category 5 hurricane makes landfall. The barometric pressure drops. The environment turns eerily quiet. You can feel the impending destruction settling in your bones long before the first drop of rain hits the pavement. My phone vibrates constantly on the kitchen counter, disrupting the hard-earned silence of my apartment. The notifications are not warm check-ins or polite family updates. They are calculated psychological strikes designed to keep me off balance. Gregory initiates the offensive on Tuesday morning. His text message appears on my screen dripping with typical condescension. Patricia is worried about the dress code. The Ritz-Carlton maintains a strict formal standard. Do you own anything suitable, or should Madison send over one of her discarded gowns? I do not reply. 2 hours later, another message arrives. We have high-profile investors attending. Please ensure your appearance reflects the family brand. No unpolished shoes. He wants me to feel small, uncertain, and out of place before I even cross the threshold of the grand ballroom. In previous years, these sharp little jabs would have ruined my week. I would have scoured discount racks searching for a garment that looked expensive enough to pass his vicious inspection. I would have let his arrogance dictate my self-worth. But standing in my kitchen now, reading his manufactured anxiety through the lens of a $15 million secret, I only experience a profound sense of pity. I leave the device on the charger and drive out to the conservation site. The Florida Everglades do not care about strict dress codes or wealthy investors. The swamp operates on ancient, unbreakable rules. I spend Wednesday wading through knee-deep brackish water, assessing a dense grove of red mangroves. These trees are remarkable survivors. They exist in a harsh transitional zone where fresh water meets punishing ocean salt. Their intricate prop roots reach deep into the suffocating anoxic mud anchoring the entire coastline. When severe storm surges roll in, the shallow ornamental palm trees snap in half, but the mangroves hold fast. They protect the vulnerable land behind them because their true strength remains hidden deep below the murky surface. My biological father understood this ecological principle perfectly. He did not build a flashy, fragile life above ground where everyone could gawk at it. He quietly laid a deep load-bearing foundation in the dark. He wove a legal structure so intricate and strong that no amount of superficial greed could uproot it. I run my gloved hand along the rough bark of a mangrove trunk. I draw steady strength from the dense, tangled wood. Gregory and Madison are shallow, ornamental palms posing for the social cameras. They look pristine until the wind shifts. I am the mangrove, and the storm is finally gathering off the coast. By Thursday, the frantic energy emanating from Coral Gables reaches a fever pitch. Madison leaves a breathless voicemail complaining that the master floral designer substituted cream orchids instead of pure white. She sounds as if a genuine global tragedy has occurred. Patricia sends a group email dictating the exact timeline for the pre-party professional photography session. She assigns me a specific time slot 30 minutes after the main family portraits are scheduled to conclude. They are meticulously orchestrating every single optical detail of their fake kingdom. Their noisy, desperate performance highlights the stark, widening contrast between us. They are sprinting on a treadmill of endless consumption, terrified that if they stop moving, the illusion will shatter into 1,000 pieces. I am standing perfectly still. The silence in my apartment is no longer a symptom of loneliness or exclusion. It is the steady, deliberate calm of a hunter waiting in a blind. I do not return their frantic messages. I do not apologize for missing the florist deadline. I let their chaotic anxiety echo back at them. The less I speak, the louder their own insecurities become. Friday evening arrives, bringing the final eve of the gala. The sounds of Miami traffic hum outside my window, but inside my living room, the atmosphere is steady and grounded. I do not borrow an old gown from my sister. I visit a quiet boutique in downtown Miami and purchase a simple, elegant navy dress. It features clean, tailored lines and zero sparkly embellishments. It does not scream for attention. It commands respect through sheer, understated confidence. I hang the garment on the back of my bedroom door and retrieve a small wooden box from my top dresser drawer. Inside rests my biological father's vintage timepiece. It is a stainless steel automatic watch with a cracked leather band and a faded dial. It holds zero monetary value to a man like Gregory who flaunts platinum chronographs. But to me, it represents everything genuine and enduring in this world. I carefully wind the crown. The internal gears catch and the second hand begins its steady, sweeping march. The mechanical ticking fills the quiet room. I secure the worn leather strap around my left wrist. The cool metal rests against my pulse, grounding me in reality. I sit at my desk and open my laptop one final time before the main event. I review the digitized trust documents Harrison Sterling provided earlier in the week. I trace the specific legal clauses detailing my sole authority over the segregated funds. I open my secure banking application and verify the encrypted portal remains highly active. The 12-digit alphanumeric transfer code is memorized, burned into my mind like a permanent brand. My cell phone sits fully charged beside the keyboard. The financial weapon is primed. The safety is off. I look at my reflection in the dark window pane. The woman staring back is no longer the quiet, agreeable daughter who accepts the overflow seating. She is the executor of a long overdue reckoning. Patricia will have her grand stage tomorrow night. Gregory will have his captive, wealthy audience. But I hold the unwritten script they do not know they are reading. The transition from the invisible relative to the architect of their ruin feels remarkably peaceful. I turn off the desk lamp and climb into bed. I sleep deeply and soundly without a single dream. Tomorrow I step directly into the lion's den. And the lions have absolutely no idea the heavy steel cage is about to lock from the outside. The upcoming evening will test every ounce of this newfound resolve when the ballroom doors swing open and the trap finally snaps shut. The valet at the Ritz-Carlton takes the keys to my worn Honda. I step onto the pristine brick driveway. The thick Miami humidity clings to my skin for only a few seconds before the automatic glass doors slide open. The hotel lobby blasts refrigerated air. The temperature drop is sudden and sharp. I walk across the polished terrazzo floors following the discreet gold signage directing guests toward the main ballroom. The reception area is manned by two young women in tailored black dresses holding digital tablets. I approach the mahogany table and provide my name. The hostess smiles a bright practice smile and begins swiping her screen. Her polished fingernail taps the glass. She scrolls down. She frowns slightly, losing her professional rhythm. She swipes to a different screen. The awkward silence stretches between us. "Let me check the secondary list," she says, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. She taps the corner of her screen and nods. "Ah, here you are. Mia Wilson. You were added to the very bottom margin this morning. Please go right inside." Even the hired event staff knows I am an afterthought. I thank her and walk toward the towering double doors. The grand ballroom is designed to overwhelm the senses. It is a masterclass in financial intimidation. 5-tiered crystal chandeliers hang from the vaulted ceiling, refracting light across the room. A towering ice sculpture shaped like the Miami skyline dominates the central buffet, sweating under the warm ambient spotlights. 200 guests mill around the dance floor. Men wear bespoke European tuxedos. Women wear flowing designer silk and heavy diamonds that catch the chandelier glow. The continuous sound of clinking champagne flutes creates a high-pitched metallic hum. I step into the room wearing my simple tailored navy dress. I have no sequins. I wear no diamonds. The only accessory I carry is my biological father's vintage stainless steel watch strapped securely to my left wrist. I stand near the entrance, taking a slow, calculated breath. I observe the opulent ecosystem. As a wetlands ecologist, I spend my life studying biological hierarchies and territorial behaviors. The dynamics here are identical to the swamp. There are apex predators hunting for vulnerable investments. There are parasitic socialites attaching themselves to fresh wealth. And there is a strict, unyielding hierarchy based entirely on perceived value. I do not have to search for my sister. Madison finds me first. She materializes from the crowd holding a slender crystal glass. She wears a striking silver gown that clings to her frame. Her fiancé Preston walks half a step behind her, projecting the effortless boredom of generational wealth. Madison stops 3 feet away, allowing her gaze to travel slowly from my plain black heels to the neckline of my navy dress. "Mia, you actually came?" she says. Her voice carries just enough volume to ensure the wealthy couple standing nearby hears the exchange. "I am surprised. We all assumed you would stay home and read a book about algae. And look at that dress. It is very brave of you to wear something straight off the clearance rack to a formal Ritz-Carlton event. It really highlights your commitment to a frugal blue-collar lifestyle." Preston chuckles softly, shifting his weight. He adjusts his expensive silk tie but refuses to make direct eye contact with me. I look at Madison. Her eyes shine with a brittle, desperate energy. She needs me to react. She craves the validation of a visible flinch. She wants me to shrink so she can feel tall. I do not give her the satisfaction. I remain perfectly still, allowing the cool weight of the vintage watch to press against my skin. The dress serves its purpose. "Madison," I reply, keeping my tone low and even. "I am here to deliver a gift to our mother. Enjoy your champagne." I step around her, ending the interaction before she can launch a secondary insult. I weave through the dense crowd. Guests instinctively step aside, creating a narrow path. They do not greet me. They do not smile. They look at my simple dress and recognize an outsider. The orchestrated whispers follow in my wake, traveling through the room like a toxic undercurrent. I hear fragments of their gossip. They label me the difficult daughter. They pity Gregory for having to tolerate my presence. I let the false narratives wash over me without absorbing a single drop. Patricia and Gregory hold court near the elevated main stage. They are the undeniable center of gravity in the room. A dozen sycophantic business partners and charity board members surround them, laughing loudly at Gregory's jokes. Patricia wears a custom emerald gown that matches the deep green of her precious orchids. She holds a champagne flute performing the role of the gracious, adored matriarch. Gregory stands beside her, looking regal and victorious. I wait for a break in the conversation before stepping into the inner circle. The sycophants turn their heads, annoyed by the sudden intrusion. Patricia notices me. Her practiced radiant smile falters for a fraction of a second. A micro-expression of profound irritation flashes across her carefully contoured face. "Mia," she says, her voice tight and formal. "You are here." I am," I say. I reach into my small clutch purse and pull out a flat rectangular package wrapped in understated silver paper. "I came to bring you this. Happy retirement." Patricia takes the package, holding it away from her emerald dress as if the paper might stain the fabric. She peels back the silver wrapping. The object inside is a carefully restored photograph housed in a heavy silver frame. The image shows Patricia standing on a sunlit Florida beach 25 years ago. My biological father, David, is standing next to her wearing his usual work boots and a genuine wide smile. It represents a simpler, honest era before the relentless pursuit of high society poisoned our bloodline. I watch Patricia's eyes scan the photograph. I am looking for a spark of nostalgia. I am searching for a tiny, hidden reservoir of maternal warmth. I want her to remember the man who built the true foundation she currently stands upon. Patricia does not smile, her lips pressed together in a thin, hard line. She does not see a beautiful memory. She sees a highly inconvenient ghost. She sees a stark visual reminder of the modest life she spent 2 decades trying to erase. She does not thank me. She does not acknowledge my effort to restore the damaged negative. Without breaking her rigid posture, she raises her left hand and snaps her fingers. A passing waiter holding a large silver tray full of discarded empty glasses hurries over. "Take this to the coat check," Patricia commands, placing the silver frame flat onto the tray, next to a crumpled cocktail napkin. "Tell them to put it somewhere out of the way." The waiter nods and disappears into the crowd, carrying my biological father's image away like a piece of dirty trash. The rejection is swift, sterile, and breathtakingly cruel. Gregory steps forward. The heavy scent of his expensive cologne masks the stale smell of the surrounding alcohol. He leans his head down so his mouth is mere inches from my ear. His eyes are flat and dead, filled with unvarnished contempt. "You do not belong in this room," he mutters, his voice a harsh, gravelly whisper, intended only for me. "You are a stain on this family. Stop trying to drag us down to your pathetic level. Stand in the corner and keep your mouth shut until the speeches are over." He pulls back, straightening his bespoke tuxedo jacket. He flashes a brilliant white smile to a nearby investor, seamlessly resuming his role as the charming, wealthy host. I stand in the center of the ballroom, breathing in the chilled, conditioned air. The final test is over. I gave my mother one last genuine opportunity to defend her own child. I gave her a piece of her true history. She chose to throw it away. She chose to stand silently while her husband delivered a venomous threat. The emotional tether holding me to these people snaps. The severance is clean and permanent. There is no grief left in my chest. There is only the cold, hard reality of arithmetic waiting to be deployed. The tension in the room boils beneath the surface of the polite jazz music and the clinking glasses. The invisible trap is fully armed. Gregory feels invincible standing on his grand stage. He has no idea he is about to make the single biggest mistake of his entire fraudulent life. A sharp chime rings out, cutting through the ambient noise of the ballroom. A senior event coordinator stands near the elevated stage, tapping a silver spoon against a crystal champagne flute. The jazz quartet stops playing, immediately lowering their brass instruments. The 200 guests naturally pivot, facing the front of the room. A pathway clears down the center aisle. I remain standing near a wide marble pillar, giving me an unobstructed view of the impending performance. A prominent local politician takes the podium first. He adjusts his tailored suit jacket and begins reading from a prepared index card. He introduces my mother as a visionary leader, a tireless philanthropist, and the true heartbeat of Coral Gables society. The crowd applauds politely. Patricia ascends the short wooden staircase, holding the skirt of her emerald gown. She accepts the microphone with a practiced, humble nod. Her speech is a masterpiece of synthetic emotion. She speaks softly about the value of community and the importance of leaving a lasting legacy. She lists her various charity board seats, acting as though attending luncheons equates to grueling manual labor. She thanks the wealthy investors sitting in the front row. She smiles at the city council members. She carefully avoids any mention of her modest beginnings. She erases her history with every polished sentence. When Patricia finishes, the audience erupts into enthusiastic applause. Gregory steps up to join her. He takes the microphone from her hand and places his arm around her waist. He stands tall, projecting the distinct aura of a conquering king surveying his domain. The lighting shifts slightly, illuminating his sharp features and the expensive platinum watch shining on his wrist. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the real reason I stand here tonight. Gregory begins, his voice booming through the overhead speakers. A man only reaches these heights when he is supported by an unbreakable foundation. He pulls Patricia closer, kissing her cheek. The crowd murmurs in collective approval. Gregory turns his attention to the front row. He extends his free hand, gesturing toward Madison. My younger sister beams under the spotlight, leaning into her wealthy fiancé. And to my beautiful daughter, Madison, Gregory continues, you are the bright future of this dynasty. Looking at you and your mother, I know I am the luckiest man alive. You are my perfect family. The phrasing is deliberate. He draws a tight, exclusive circle around the three of them, leaving no room for anyone else. He waits for the applause to die down. The room grows quiet, anticipating a final toast. Gregory scans the crowd. His eyes sweep over the sea of designer clothing and expensive jewelry. Then his gaze stops. He finds me standing beside the marble pillar. I have not retreated into the shadows. I am standing in plain sight, wearing my simple navy dress, refusing to lower my chin. I watch the exact second his irritation hardens into dark, unfiltered cruelty. He cannot stand the sight of my quiet defiance. He realizes I did not obey his earlier command to hide in the corner. In his mind, my mere presence is a direct challenge to his supreme authority. He decides the subtle microaggressions are no longer sufficient. He wants to execute a public total humiliation. He wants to demonstrate his untouchable power to his wealthy peers. Gregory leans closer to the microphone stand. The casual warmth drains from his face, replaced by a cold, rigid sneer. Security, he says. The word echoes across the vaulted ceiling. The guests shift uncomfortably, unsure if this is a scripted part of the presentation. Gregory raises his hand and points his index finger straight down the center aisle. He aims directly at my chest. Remove this useless woman, he commands, his voice flat and punishing. She was not invited. A heavy, suffocating silence falls over the entire ballroom. 200 people stop breathing simultaneously. The clinking of crystal stops. The polite murmurs vanish. The only sound is the low hum of the industrial air conditioning overhead. Every single face in the room turns to follow the trajectory of Gregory's pointing finger. They look at me. The affluent strangers inspect my plain dress and my unadorned neck. They step backward, their silk gowns rustling against the floor, creating a wide, empty physical perimeter around me. I am suddenly an isolated island in a sea of extreme wealth. I do not look at the staring guests. I do not look at Gregory. I look straight at Patricia. My mother is standing 2 feet away from the microphone. She holds a position of equal power on that stage. She possesses the ability to step forward, take the microphone back, and correct her husband. She can say my name. She can claim her eldest child. This is the final, genuine test I promise to administer. The invisible scale hangs suspended in the chilled air, balancing $15 million against a single act of maternal courage. Patricia looks down at the audience. She sees the politicians, the investors, and the socialites watching her closely. She calculates the social cost of defending the blue-collar daughter. Then she lowers her eyes. She stares at the polished wooden floorboards of the stage. She locks her jaw and chooses her husband's cruelty over my dignity. The scale tips. The test is over. The test is. 2 large men wearing dark suits and earpieces emerge from the perimeter of the room. They move swiftly through the parted crowd, approaching me from both sides. They flank me, their large frames casting long shadows over the marble floor. Ma'am, one of the guards says, keeping his tone low and strictly professional. You need to come with us right now. Do not make this difficult. I look at the guard. I have no intention of making a scene. Screaming and fighting are the desperate tactics of people who have no real leverage. I do not need to raise my voice. I possess the launch codes to a financial nuclear strike. I raise my left hand. I unbuckle the worn leather strap of my biological father's vintage stainless steel watch. The metal is warm from my skin. I slide the timepiece off my wrist. The action is slow and deliberate. The nearby guests watch me with morbid fascination, expecting me to throw a temper tantrum or beg for forgiveness. Instead, I step toward a small, high-top cocktail table draped in white linen. I place the vintage watch face up on the pristine fabric. I leave it behind as a silent monument. It is a marker for the man who built the true foundation they are standing on. They can keep his ghost. I no longer need the physical artifact to protect me. I have his legal ironclad architecture waiting in my digital vault. I turn away from the stage. I do not run. I do not lower my head. I walk toward the grand double doors with steady, measured steps. My heels strike the terrazzo floor, beating a calm, rhythmic cadence against the crushing silence of the room. The two security guards follow closely behind me, escorting me out of the opulent fake kingdom. As the heavy ballroom doors swing shut behind my back, cutting off the cold, conditioned air, I step into the humid, suffocating heat of the Miami night. I am officially exiled from my own family. But the eviction is purely physical. They have no idea that by kicking me out of their party, they just handed me the undeniable justification to tear down their entire universe. The quiet daughter is gone. The architect of their ruin is walking toward the parking lot, and my laptop is fully charged. The heavy glass doors of the Ritz-Carlton closed behind me, sealing away the manufactured warmth and the polite applause. I stepped onto the concrete parking structure. The stark reality of the Miami night greeted me. The air felt thick and damp, clinging to my skin like a wet, heavy blanket. Distant traffic hummed along the coastal highway, providing a steady, dull roar that replaced the polite jazz quartet. I did not linger near the valet stand. I walked past the rows of imported luxury sedans and bright European sports cars until I reached my modest vehicle. The metal handle of the Honda Civic was warm to the touch. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and closed myself inside the quiet, dark cabin. The interior smelled faintly of dried marsh mud and old coffee. It smelled like my real, honest life. I took a deep breath, letting the oxygen fill my lungs. My pulse was incredibly steady. The adrenaline from the public ejection had already faded, leaving behind a sharp, pristine clarity. I reached into the passenger side footwell and retrieved my heavy canvas work bag. I pulled out my laptop, resting the silver machine evenly across my knees. I pressed the power button. The screen illuminated, casting a pale blue glow over the dashboard and the worn steering wheel. I activated the mobile hotspot feature on my cellular device, linking the two machines. The digital connection established itself within seconds. I opened my encrypted email application and located the specific conference bridge number Harrison Sterling provided earlier that week. I dialed the digits on my phone and placed the device on the center console. The speakerphone activated. A sterile electronic tone chimed once, indicating I had joined the secure room. Miss Wilson. Harrison Sterling's voice filtered through the small speaker. He sounded crisp, alert, and perfectly composed. I am here, Mr. Sterling, I replied, keeping my tone flat and professional. A second voice joined the line. It belonged to the senior fiduciary manager from the downtown banking institution. She identified herself, formally stating her full name and her corporate title for the recorded ledger. She asked if I was prepared to proceed with the irrevocable asset transfer. I told her I was ready. There were no dramatic pauses. There was no theatrical hesitation. We did not discuss the cruel spectacle that had just occurred inside the grand ballroom. We operated with cold, surgical precision. The fiduciary manager asked me to verbally confirm my identity, using a series of predetermined security questions. I recited my mother's maiden name, the street address of my childhood home, and the exact date of my biological father's passing. The manager confirmed the answers matched her secure database. She then instructed me to open the banking portal on my laptop and navigate to the segregated fund authorization page. I clicked the secure link. A loading circle spun briefly before revealing a stark white screen displaying a single empty text box. Please provide the 12-digit alphanumeric authorization code the manager requested. Her voice remained devoid of any emotion. She treated the impending transaction like a routine administrative chore. I typed the sequence. I did not need to reference my notes. The letters and numbers were permanently etched into my memory. I read the code aloud as my fingers struck the keys, ensuring both representatives heard the exact combination. The manager verified the input. The system registers the correct authorization, she stated. Miss Wilson, you are initiating the immediate withdrawal of $15,420,000 from the overarching Wilson Family Trust. These assets will transfer directly into the independent sole beneficiary account established in your name. Do you understand that this action is permanent and legally binding? I understand perfectly, I said. Please apply your digital signature to execute the command, she instructed. I moved the cursor across the trackpad. I traced my name in the designated electronic box. I clicked the final submission button. The screen refreshed, displaying a green confirmation checkmark. The transfer is officially initiated, the fiduciary manager confirmed. The internal routing process requires approximately 45 minutes to clear the federal compliance algorithms. Once the window closes, the funds will be fully isolated in your private account. Thank you, I said. Sterling spoke up before the manager disconnected. He sounded almost reverent. Your father would be very proud of your timing, Miss Wilson. We will speak tomorrow morning. The call ended. The interior of the car returned to absolute silence. I sat alone in the dark parking lot watching the green confirmation checkmark glow on my laptop screen. Many people would label this moment a vicious act of revenge. They would assume I sat in my vehicle seething with anger, seeking desperate vengeance against the people who humiliated me. But revenge requires a deep emotional investment. Revenge implies a desire to hurt someone simply to balance an internal scale. I felt no desire to hurt Gregory or Patricia. I felt nothing for them at all. What I had just done was not revenge. It was simply arithmetic. It was the undeniable law of financial gravity. Gregory had spent a decade building a towering skyscraper of debt. He constructed his luxury condominiums and funded his yacht club lifestyle by using my inheritance as the foundational bedrock. He pledged the total cumulative value of the family trust to secure astronomical corporate loans. The banks granted him those vast credit lines because the ledger reflected a bloated $40 million balance. By removing my $15 million, I did not actively destroy his empire. I merely took back the specific load-bearing bricks that belonged to me. The resulting collapse was a matter of pure automated mathematics. In exactly 45 minutes, the bank routing protocols would finalize my withdrawal. The overarching trust's total asset value would plummet by nearly 40%. The commercial lender's automated risk management software operates blindly. It does not care about Gregory's tailored tuxedo or his charismatic ballroom speeches. The algorithm only reads the numbers. When the software registers the sudden staggering drop in collateral, it will instantly trigger a strict margin call. The financial safeguards will execute automatically without human intervention. The system will aggressively freeze the linked accounts to prevent further institutional exposure. Right now, inside that ballroom, Gregory is likely ordering an expensive bottle of imported champagne to celebrate my successful ejection. He thinks he won the war. He does not know his platinum credit cards are currently turning into useless pieces of plastic. The exclusive country club membership dues set for auto-renewal will bounce. The generous monthly allowance deposited directly into Madison's checking account will abruptly halt. The corporate lines of credit funding his current waterfront development will lock down, paralyzing his construction crews. The illusion of infinite wealth is evaporating pixel by pixel inside a bank server miles away. I closed my laptop. The screen went black, plunging the car back into darkness. I unhooked my cell phone from the charging cable. I looked at the lock screen. There were no missed calls yet. The 45-minute processing window was still ticking down. They were still oblivious, dancing on the deck of a sinking ship. I held down the power button on the side of the phone. The device vibrated once and powered off entirely. I tossed the dead phone onto the passenger seat next to my canvas work bag. I inserted my key into the ignition. The old Honda engine turned over with a familiar, reassuring rumble. I shifted into gear and drove out of the Ritz-Carlton parking lot. I merged onto the highway, leaving the glittering Coral Gables skyline behind me. The drive back to my modest apartment took 30 minutes. The roads were relatively clear, allowing me to maintain a steady cruising speed. I rolled the window down, letting the warm night air rush through the cabin. I felt remarkably light. For 33 years, I carried the heavy burden of their disapproval. I internalized their sneers and accepted their casual cruelty. I spent my entire adult life trying to occupy a shrinking space in their glamorous world. Now the heavy, invisible weight was gone. I parked my car in my designated spot outside my building. I walked up the 2 flights of concrete stairs to my apartment. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside my quiet sanctuary. I turned on the small lamp in the living room. The familiar sight of my botanical prints and my worn sofa brought a genuine smile to my face. I walked into the kitchen, filled the kettle with tap water, and set it on the stove to boil. I went into the bathroom and turned on the shower, allowing the hot water to wash away the stale, chilled air of the ballroom. I took my time. I enjoyed the simple routine. While I stood under the running water, the federal compliance algorithms finalized the transfer. The automated dominoes began to fall. The margin call activated. The error messages started appearing on merchant terminals across Miami. The panic was taking root. When I finally stepped out of the shower and wrapped myself in a towel, I walked back into the living room. My powered-down cell phone sat inside my canvas bag. I knew exactly what was waiting for me when I turned it back on. The silence of my apartment was about to break. The consequences of the arithmetic were driving straight toward my front door, and the real confrontation was only just beginning. The kettle whistled a low, steady pitch, breaking the pristine silence of my apartment. I poured the boiling water over dried yellow flowers and watched the golden liquid steep inside my favorite ceramic mug. The steam rose in curling wisps, carrying the soothing, earthy scent of chamomile through the small kitchen. I walked into the living room and sat on the worn fabric sofa, tucking my legs beneath a knitted throw blanket. The chaotic, manufactured energy of the Coral Gables grand ballroom felt like a distant, fading memory. Here inside my modest sanctuary, the air was calm and the foundation was securely mine. I set the warm mug on a wooden coaster. I reached into my canvas work bag and retrieved my cellular device. The screen was dark and silent, just as I had left it in the hotel parking lot. I pressed the side button, holding it down until the manufacturer logo illuminated the glass. The operating system booted up. For a fraction of a second, the screen remained frozen, unable to process the sheer volume of incoming data. Then the digital dam broke. The device vibrated, incessantly buzzing against my palm like a trapped, frantic insect. A cascade of notifications flooded the display, pushing older alerts out of view. The red notification badge hovering over the phone application displayed a staggering number: 56 missed calls. The text messages followed, stacking up in rapid, chaotic succession. They painted a vivid chronological picture of a dynasty collapsing in real time. The first few texts were from Madison, tinged with annoyance and confusion. The later messages from Patricia displayed mounting panic. The final barrage of communications came from Gregory, featuring misspelled words and desperate demands for immediate contact. I did not answer any of them. I simply scrolled through the digital wreckage, observing the timeline of their destruction. To fully grasp the magnitude of that specific hour, you must understand exactly how the evening unraveled miles away at the Ritz-Carlton. The arithmetic had executed its unyielding logic. The fallout was swift and merciless. At 10:15, while I was driving along the coastal highway, Madison walked up to the glowing LED bar situated near the dance floor. She wanted to impress Preston's affluent Boston connections. She possessed an insatiable need to prove she belonged in their elite financial echelon. Madison confidently ordered a round of vintage imported tequila for the group. The total tab exceeded $800. She did not blink. She simply opened her designer clutch and produced her heavy metal platinum card, dropping it casually onto the bartender's silver tray. The bartender swiped the magnetic strip through the point-of-sale terminal. The machine processed the request for 3 seconds before emitting a sharp, harsh rejection tone. The screen flashed a bright red error message indicating insufficient funds. Madison offered a breezy, practiced laugh. She blamed a trivial banking security glitch, assuring Preston's friends that the fraud department often flagged her extravagant weekend purchases. She reached into her purse and retrieved a secondary black card tied directly to Gregory's corporate expense account. The bartender swiped it. The machine rejected it instantly. A third card yielded the same humiliating result. The polite, accommodating smile vanished from the bartender's face. He quietly slid the unpaid bill across the polished mahogany counter. Preston's friends exchanged subtle, knowing glances. Preston stepped forward, pulling a card from his own wallet to cover the tab. His jaw tightened. He did not say a word to Madison, but the silent, heavy judgment hung in the humid air between them. Her curated illusion of infinite wealth had just cracked wide open in front of the exact audience she was desperate to deceive. At 10:22, Patricia felt a sustained vibration inside her jeweled evening bag. She was standing near the towering ice sculpture, chatting with a prominent local politician. She offered a gracious apology and stepped away from the conversation, assuming the notification pertained to the upcoming charity luncheon schedule. She opened her private banking application. Instead of a routine calendar reminder, she found a severe, high-priority alert dominating her screen. The message informed her that the primary joint operating accounts were currently restricted. The automated protocol cited a critical breach of the required collateral margins. Patricia tapped the screen, her manicured fingers trembling slightly. She attempted to view the available balance ledger. The system denied her access, displaying a stark notification that all outbound financial transfers were suspended, pending a comprehensive audit. The fake, radiant smile slipped entirely off her face. The secure, opulent floor beneath her designer heels felt as though it had turned into quicksand. Patricia spent decades curating a flawless, untouchable image. She sacrificed her own daughter to maintain that specific facade. Now, standing in a room full of people she considered her peers, she realized her entire existence was suddenly unfunded. The definitive fatal blow arrived at 10:28. Gregory was mingling near the elevated stage, basking in the afterglow of his cruel public speech. His mobile phone rang, projecting a customized, distinctive ringtone reserved strictly for his senior wealth manager. Gregory answered the call, expecting a late congratulatory greeting or a brief update regarding Monday morning market projections. He stepped into a quiet, carpeted hallway to take the call, isolated from the loud jazz music. Gregory, the wealth manager, said, his voice lacking its usual deferential warmth. "We have a catastrophic situation unfolding. I just received an automated alert from the federal compliance system. Our institutional lenders are issuing an immediate margin call across your entire portfolio." Gregory scoffed, loosening his silk tie. He leaned against the textured wallpaper, projecting supreme arrogance. "That is a clerical error," he replied. "The overarching family trust holds over $40 million. We have plenty of leverage. Call the underwriters and fix the glitch." "It is not a glitch," Gregory, the manager, stated, his tone dropping into a clinical, unforgiving cadence. "The central ledger dropped by nearly 40% 30 minutes ago. $15 million was legally withdrawn and permanently segregated from the primary collateral pool." Gregory froze. The warm flush of expensive scotch drained from his face, leaving him pale and shaken. Withdrawn, he repeated the word, tasting foreign on his tongue. "Who authorized a transfer of that magnitude without consulting me?" "The rightful sole beneficiary," the manager explained. "The transaction utilized the designated alphanumeric codes verified through the secure encrypted portal. The funds have cleared. They now reside in an independent account belonging entirely to Mia Wilson. You have zero legal authority to reverse the action." Gregory stared blankly at the ornate hallway carpet. His mind scrambled, trying to process the impossible information. the quiet daughter he had just thrown out of the building, the blue-collar ecologist he openly despised. The woman he assumed was weak and utterly defenseless had just reached into the dark, grabbed the hidden load-bearing pillar of his empire, and ripped it straight out of the ground. He realized she knew everything. She knew about the safe deposit box. She knew about the original irrevocable terms. She likely knew about his recent frantic attempts to forge a fake legal amendment. She had sat in his house, signed his floral waivers, and quietly engineered his absolute ruin without raising her voice a single time. The retirement gala transformed from a joyous coronation into a lavish funeral. Gregory rushed back into the ballroom, grabbing Patricia by the arm. He dragged her toward the exit, his fingers digging painfully into her emerald silk sleeve. Madison followed closely behind them, tears ruining her meticulous makeup, as Preston's friends watched their chaotic, panicked departure. The whispers among the Miami elite started immediately. The sharks in the room smelled blood in the water, and the social exclusion Gregory weaponized against me was about to become his own permanent reality. I sat on my sofa reading the final text message Gregory had sent just 5 minutes ago. It read, "Answer the phone, Mia. You are making a terrible mistake." I took a slow sip of the warm chamomile tea. The liquid coated my throat, bringing a deep, soothing comfort. I placed the ceramic mug back onto the wooden coaster. The digital clock on my cable box displayed 11:15. The harsh buzzing sound of my apartment intercom shattered the quiet atmosphere. They were not calling anymore. They had crossed the city and bypassed the security gate. The individuals who spent my entire life making sure I knew I did not belong at their table were now standing directly on my doorstep, demanding an audience. I set my phone down, stood up from the couch, and walked toward the entryway. The time for silent observation was over. The physical confrontation had arrived, and I held every single winning card in my hand. The harsh electronic buzz of the apartment intercom shattered the quiet atmosphere of my living room. I set my ceramic mug on a wooden coaster and walked toward the wall-mounted security panel. I pressed the small button to activate the exterior camera feed. The black and white monitor flickered to life, revealing the concrete stoop of my building. The digital timestamp in the bottom corner displayed 11:15. Standing under the harsh yellow glow of the street lamp were 3 figures. They looked profoundly unraveled. Gregory had torn his expensive silk bow tie from his collar, leaving it hanging loose around his neck like a frayed rope. Patricia clutched her emerald evening shawl tight against her chest, her immaculate makeup smeared dark underneath her eyes. Madison stood half a step behind them, staring blankly at the glowing screen of her cellular device. Her shoulders trembled. They were bringing the hurricane directly to my front door. I pressed the unlock mechanism. The heavy security gate clicked open, echoing through the stairwell. I heard their frantic, uncoordinated footsteps charging up the 2 flights of concrete stairs. They treated my building the same way they treated my life. They assumed they could barge in uninvited, make endless noise, and demand immediate compliance. I opened my front door before they could strike the wood with their fists. Gregory reached the landing first. His chest heaved, pulling the fabric of his bespoke tuxedo shirt tight. His face was flushed a dark, unnatural red beneath his fading artificial tan. He opened his mouth, drawing a deep, ragged breath to unleash a prepared tirade of venomous insults. I raised my right hand. The physical gesture was small but unyielding. "You are in my home," I stated, keeping my vocal tone strictly level. "Lower your voice or leave." Gregory choked on his drawn breath. The command short-circuited his entire mental framework. For a decade, he dictated the volume of every single room he entered. He commanded boardrooms and ordered security guards to remove unwanted guests. Now, a woman standing in a modest apartment hallway was dictating his behavior. He closed his mouth, swallowing his initial outrage. He stepped over the threshold, followed closely by Patricia and Madison. My living room felt instantly suffocating. The space was never designed to accommodate 3 people radiating such severe panic. Gregory refused to sit on the woven fabric sofa. He paced across the rug with a restless, chaotic energy. He pointed a shaking finger toward my face. "You stole my money!" he hissed, keeping his volume just under a shout to comply with my boundary. You hacked into the banking portal and committed wire fraud. I am calling the authorities, Mia. I will have you arrested and jailed before midnight." Patricia stood near the kitchen counter, wrapping her arms tightly around her own waist. She surveyed my botanical prints and my practical furniture, as if the modest decor might physically infect her. "How could you do this to us?" Patricia whispered, her voice cracking with engineered victimhood. "After everything we provided for you, after we let you attend the gala." I did not defend myself against the hollow, desperate threat of police intervention. I walked over to the small oak coffee table. I picked up the heavy leather-bound binder containing the certified copies Harrison Sterling provided to me days ago. I dropped the 40 pages onto the flat wooden surface. The sharp slap of heavy paper hitting solid wood silenced Gregory mid-stride. "I stole nothing," I replied, meeting his erratic gaze. "I reclaimed exactly what belonged to me. The document lying between us is the irrevocable trust agreement drafted by my biological father." Gregory stepped closer, narrowing his eyes at the leather binder. "That ledger is joint property," he spat. "I manage that portfolio. I built the collateral." "You do not manage the segregated fund," I corrected him. "Section 4 explicitly walls off $15 million. It designates me as the sole trustee upon my 30th birthday." I flipped the thick parchment pages until I reached the final sheet. I pointed to the faded blue ink resting at the bottom of the page. "That is David's signature. He built the deep foundation you hijacked to fund your offshore accounts and your country club dues. I simply executed my legal right to withdraw my own vested assets. The fact that your entire real estate empire instantly crumbled without my collateral merely proves you never possessed any real wealth to begin with." Patricia gasped, bringing a manicured hand to her throat. She turned her head toward her husband, looking at him as if he were a stranger. "Gregory, you told me our investments were secure. You said the margin ratios were impenetrable." Gregory ignored his wife. His eyes darted around my living room, calculating his next desperate maneuver. He attempted to regain the high ground, relying on the only tactic he knew. He tried to bully the facts. "That trust is outdated," he claimed, his voice regaining a fraction of its former arrogant timbre. "I have active pending amendments filed with my legal counsel. You cannot transfer those funds while the competency clauses are under formal judicial review. I am filing an injunction tomorrow morning. The courts will freeze your account and restore my access." He truly believed he still held a hidden trump card. He thought he could intimidate me with the threat of endless expensive corporate litigation. He assumed I was a naive scientist who did not understand the ruthless mechanics of the legal system. I opened the top drawer of my desk and retrieved a single sheet of glossy printer paper. I walked back to the coffee table and laid the photograph directly over David's original signature. It was the high-resolution image I captured inside his Coral Gables study earlier that week. The camera flash highlighted the shady law firm letterhead and the bold type title Draft Trust Amendment. I made sure his own handwritten margin notes were clearly visible in the printout. Gregory looked down at the image. The blood drained from his face, leaving a pale, sickly ash color behind. His jaw went slack. "I saw this document sitting unattended on your desk on Tuesday afternoon," I stated, maintaining unyielding eye contact. "You were actively attempting to forge a legal document to steal my inheritance and redirect the money to Madison. You plan to submit fabricated competency evaluations to a judge. That is not a simple civil dispute, Gregory. That is felony fraud." He stared at the glossy paper, unable to form a coherent syllable. "I forwarded this exact photograph to Harrison Sterling hours ago," I continued, my voice slicing through the heavy silence of the room. "If you attempt to file an injunction or challenge my legal withdrawal in any court, Sterling will hand this evidence directly to the state prosecutor's office. You will not just lose your luxury yachts and your pristine mansions. You will lose your freedom. You will go to federal prison." The physical transformation was profound. The commanding, powerful real estate baron vanished. The man standing in my living room was hollow, fragile, and terrified. His bluster evaporated, leaving nothing but the cold, stark reality of his impending ruin. He realized his financial crimes were fully documented, verified, and sitting on a coffee table in an apartment he previously considered beneath his dignity. He could not scream for security to remove me. He could not hide behind his sycophantic investors. He was trapped inside a snare of his own design. My long-endured silence was officially replaced by ironclad, legally binding accountability. Patricia covered her face, weeping silent tears of self-pity. She did not mourn the betrayal of her daughter. She mourned the loss of her emerald gowns and her high society status. She realized she hitched her wagon to a fraud and the wheels had just fallen off. But the most dangerous volatile reaction did not come from my mother or my defeated stepfather. It came from the golden child standing near the entryway. Madison dropped her designer clutch onto the hardwood floor. The heavy metal clasp clattered loudly against the wood. She stared at the trust documents with wide, manic eyes. The realization washed over her in a brutal wave. The unlimited, generous allowance she relied upon to fund her pristine lifestyle was gone forever. The luxury condominium Gregory paid for would face foreclosure. Her extravagant upcoming wedding to Preston hung by a frayed, desperate thread now that her dowry was reduced to zero. She stepped toward me, her hands balled into tight fists. Her silver gown shimmered under the warm living room light, creating a stark contrast to the ugly, twisted expression forming on her face. The illusion of the graceful socialite vanished. The next layer of this toxic dynamic was about to shatter, and Madison was preparing to fight a war she had already lost. Madison closed the distance between us. Her silver designer gown rustled sharply against the hardwood floor. She pointed a trembling finger at the leather binder resting on the coffee table. She did not care that Gregory had just been exposed as a massive fraud. She did not care that her stepfather was facing potential federal prison time. Her entire universe was shrinking down to a single terrifying focal point. Her wedding. "You have to reverse the transfer right now," Madison demanded. Her voice cracked, losing its usual polished cadence. "Preston's parents already booked the oceanfront venue. The deposits are pending. If those checks bounce, his family will cancel the entire engagement. They despise financial scandal, Mia. You are ruining my life over some petty sibling jealousy." I looked at my younger sister. I felt a profound sense of clarity. For decades, I believed Madison possessed some innate superiority. I thought her effortless grace and her confident posture were authentic traits. Now standing in my modest living room, stripped of her unlimited funding, she looked like a terrified child playing dress-up in borrowed clothes. "I am not ruining your life, Madison," I replied, keeping my tone even and instructional. "I am simply forcing you to live your actual life, the life you can afford." "I have a career," she countered, her face flushing a deep crimson. "I am a public relations executive. I earn my own keep." I reached for the trust portfolio. I flipped past the original signature page and extracted a supplementary ledger Harrison Sterling had provided. I slid the spreadsheet across the wooden table. I tapped my index finger against a specific highlighted column. "You do not have a career," I corrected her gently. "You have a subsidized hobby. Gregory pays the owner of that public relations firm a monthly consulting retainer. That retainer is exactly double your current salary. He literally pays your employer to keep you on the payroll, and he funds that corrupt arrangement using the collateral generated by my segregated trust." Madison stared at the ledger. Her eyes scanned the stark black numbers. The fabricated foundation of her independence crumbled before her eyes. "Your waterfront condominium is leased through a corporate shell company managed by Gregory," first continued, letting the undeniable arithmetic dismantle her ego piece by piece. "The luxury vehicle you drive is leased under the Central Family Trust. Your designer wardrobe, your yacht club memberships, your exotic vacations. You have not earned a single dollar of your lifestyle. You have been swiping a platinum card backed by my inheritance." "You are lying," she whispered, but her posture collapsed. Her shoulders slumped forward. She knew the numbers were real. The puzzle pieces fit together too perfectly. "The transfer is irrevocable," I stated. "The banking protocols are sealed. The money is locked in my private account. I am establishing a new permanent boundary tonight. The unlimited financial tap is officially shut off. I will not pay for your high society wedding. I will not underwrite your fake corporate job. You are cut off entirely. Madison let out a sharp, frantic sob. She buried her face in her hands. The pristine golden child was experiencing her very first encounter with genuine consequence. She wept for her vanishing status. She mourned the loss of her wealthy socialite fiancé. She realized she possessed zero practical survival skills. I watched her cry. A part of me, the older sister who once tried to protect her, felt a fleeting sting of pity. My biological father was a pragmatic man. He believed in the value of hard, honest labor. He would not want his wealth used as a weapon to destroy someone, but he certainly would not want it used to coddle a parasite. I decided to offer her a singular, highly conditional lifeline. I applied a constructive consequence. I am not going to let you starve, I said, cutting through her theatrical sobbing. I will authorize a modest monthly stipend from my personal funds. It will be just enough to cover rent for a standard one-bedroom apartment in a normal neighborhood and basic groceries. Madison lowered her hands. A glimmer of desperate hope sparked in her tear-filled eyes. But there are two non-negotiable conditions, I added, raising a single finger to stall her relief. First, you must enroll in and successfully complete a rigorous 12-week personal financial management course. You will take this course at the local community college. You will attend every single lecture, and you will pass the final examination. The hope instantly vanished from her face, replaced by sheer, unfiltered horror. Community college, she repeated, breathing the words as if they were a terminal diagnosis. Mia, I cannot be seen at a public community college. Preston's friends would mock me relentlessly. That brings me to the second condition. I continued, ignoring her superficial panic. You must acquire a legitimate entry-level job. You will find employment at a company where Gregory has zero influence. You will work 40 hours a week. You will earn a real paycheck, and you will learn the actual value of $1. If you meet both of these requirements, I will release the basic living stipend. If you refuse, you will receive nothing from me. Madison stared at me in stunned silence. The proposition was entirely alien to her pampered worldview. The concept of sitting in a fluorescent-lit classroom with working-class students and clocking into a regular 9-to-5 job represented a fate worse than death in her shallow social circles. She shook her head fiercely, refusing to accept the harsh new reality. She spun around, grabbing her discarded clutch from the floor, and stormed out of my apartment, leaving a trail of heavy, expensive perfume in her wake. She thought she could somehow salvage her fabricated world. She believed Preston would rescue her. She assumed her wealthy fiancé would gladly cover her debts and proceed with their lavish oceanfront wedding. She fundamentally misunderstood the mechanics of elite generational wealth. The fallout arrived much faster than she anticipated. Within 48 hours, the humiliating gossip permeated the Miami Yacht Club. The story of Gregory's catastrophic margin call spread through the country club locker rooms and the charity board luncheons. Preston's conservative Boston family operated with ruthless social efficiency. Upon hearing the scandalous rumors, his father ordered a quiet, discreet financial background check on Gregory's real estate holdings. The private investigators uncovered the frozen banking assets, the pending federal compliance audits, and the glaring absence of actual liquid capital. Preston did not visit Madison at her luxury condominium to deliver the news in person. He did not offer a shoulder for her to cry on. He executed the breakup with the sterile precision of a corporate merger dissolution. He called her on a Tuesday afternoon while she was desperately packing her designer luggage. He informed her that his family could not be associated with public financial fraud. He stated that the intense media scrutiny surrounding Gregory's collapsing empire was detrimental to his corporate brand. Preston placed their engagement on an indefinite hold. He instructed his assistant to cancel the venue deposits and notify the caterers. The message was unmistakable. The wedding was dead, and her tenure in high society was permanently terminated. The public humbling of the golden child was complete. Madison was forced to move out of her waterfront condominium before the end of the week. She deactivated her curated social media profiles, erasing her fake, glamorous digital footprint. The pristine bubble popped, leaving her stranded in the real world without a safety net. Gregory was paralyzed frantically, consulting with criminal defense attorneys trying to avoid a federal indictment. Madison was broken, banished from her elite circles. The fake kingdom had fallen exactly as the arithmetic dictated. But there was still one person left standing in my living room. One person who had not yet faced the full, unvarnished truth of her own complicity. Patricia watched her husband cower and her daughter flee. With her entire curated life in ruins, my mother wiped her smeared makeup, straightened her posture, and prepared to launch her final, most desperate manipulation. The heavy wooden door clicked shut behind Madison. Gregory followed his stepdaughter out of the apartment a few seconds later. He did not say a word. He stumbled into the hallway looking like a hollow shell of the commanding real estate baron he pretended to be. His retreat left Patricia standing alone in the center of my living room. The grand matriarch of Coral Gables was suddenly stripped of her loyal audience and her fraudulent financier. She adjusted her emerald evening shawl, pulling the expensive silk tight across her shoulders. I watched her biological mechanisms pivot. Patricia possessed an uncanny ability to adapt her emotional performance to suit any environment. With intimidation and authority stripped away, she immediately transitioned to her final defensive tactic. She deployed the victim card. Tears welled in her eyes. They were not the frantic, messy sobs Madison produced. These were pristine, calculated teardrops, designed to elicit maximum sympathy without ruining her remaining makeup. She took a tentative step toward me, reaching out with a trembling hand. "Mia, please," she whispered, her voice adopting a fragile, wounded timbre. "Look at what you are doing. You are tearing us apart over money. Family is everything. We are your blood. You cannot just destroy your own family like this." I looked at her outstretched hand. I did not reach out to meet it. I kept my arms folded across my chest, feeling the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat. "Do not use that word," I replied, keeping my tone perfectly flat. "Do not stand in my home and invoke the concept of family to escape the consequences of your own actions." She flinched, pulling her hand back as if I had struck her. "But I am your mother," she pleaded. "I raised you. I provided for you. You provided an environment where I was constantly measured and found lacking." I corrected her. "Let us examine your definition of family, Patricia. Where was your maternal loyalty last month when you banned me from Madison's engagement dinner? You specifically told me my career choice was a blue-collar embarrassment. You excluded me from a major milestone to impress a wealthy shipping heir you barely knew." "I was just trying to protect the evening," Patricia stammered, searching for a plausible excuse. "Preston's parents are incredibly judgmental people." "You were protecting your fake image," I countered. "And in the exact same breath you demanded I transfer $5,000 to fund the floral arrangements for your retirement gala. You extorted a significant portion of my emergency savings, claiming I had no family of my own to support. You took my hard-earned money to buy imported white orchids for a party you never truly wanted me to attend." Patricia looked down at the woven rug, unable to maintain eye contact. I pressed forward, dismantling her false narrative brick by brick. "And where was this profound devotion to family tonight?" I asked, my voice remaining calm, but carrying the weight of an anvil. "When Gregory grabbed the microphone and ordered security to remove me from the Ritz-Carlton ballroom, I looked directly at you. I gave you one final opportunity to act like a mother. You stood on that elevated stage surrounded by your sycophantic peers and you looked at the floor. You watched two large men march your eldest child out of the building, and you said absolutely nothing." I was shocked, she sobbed, her voice rising in pitch. "Gregory caught me off guard. I did not know what to do." "You knew exactly what to do," I stated. "You calculated the social cost. You decided that defending me was too expensive. You chose the man with the platinum credit cards over your own daughter. But that is the most tragic, ironic part of this entire situation, Patricia. You sold your soul to a man who was quietly robbing you blind." Her crying abruptly stopped. She raised her head, her eyes wide and confused. "What are you talking about?" she asked. I walked over to the coffee table and picked up the supplementary financial ledger Harrison Sterling provided. I turned to the second page and highlighted a specific section outlining the overarching trust structure. I handed the heavy parchment to my mother. You think Gregory only leveraged my segregated $15 million? I asked, watching her manicured fingers tremble against the paper. Gregory's waterfront developments require astronomical capital. He cross-collateralized everything. When the automated banking system triggered the margin call tonight, it did not just freeze his corporate shell accounts. The auditors placed a hard lock on the central ledger. Patricia stared at the numerical columns. The reality of the arithmetic began to penetrate her denial. My biological father left you a very comfortable, pristine nest egg, I explained. David provided enough liquid assets to guarantee you a secure, luxurious life, but you handed the keys to a predatory developer. Gregory gambled away your actual assets to maintain his flashy billionaire persona. He drained your original inheritance to pay for the yacht club, dues the Coral Gables mansion, and the charity gala sponsorships. You are broke, Patricia. The bank is going to liquidate your estate to cover his massive outstanding debts. The ledger slipped from her hands, fluttering to the hardwood floor. The illusion she spent 2 decades meticulously curating shattered into microscopic fragments. She realized she traded a good, honorable man for a parasitic fraud. She traded a loyal, hardworking daughter for a vapid, entitled socialite who just lost her wealthy fiancé. He used me, she whispered, her voice devoid of any theatrical inflection. The statement was raw and brutally honest. He used my money. He used all of us, I agreed. But you let him. You facilitated the abuse because you enjoyed the prestige. You allowed him to erase my father from this family. You allowed him to treat me like a disposable peasant because you liked wearing custom emerald gowns. Patricia covered her face with both hands. The pristine facade finally cracked completely. She let out a guttural, agonizing wail. It was the sound of a woman mourning the sudden violent death of her own ego. The marriage fractured instantly right there in my living room. There would be no reconciliation between them. There would be no united front facing the impending federal investigations. She despised him for stealing her wealth, and he would undoubtedly blame her for bringing me into his life. They were 2 parasites who had finally run out of a host to feed on. "Mia, please," she begged, dropping to her knees on my living room rug. "I am so sorry. I was blind. I was foolish. You have the private account now. You have the 15 million. You can help me hire a divorce attorney. You can help me save the house. We can start over. Just the 2 of us." I looked down at the woman kneeling on my floor. I felt no triumph. I felt no joy. I only felt a deep, resonant exhaustion. The ecological balance was finally restored, but the damage to the landscape was permanent. "I am not going to save you," I said, my tone carrying the finality of a closing steel door. "I spent 33 years trying to earn a seat at your table. I swallowed your insults. I parked my car in the overflow lots. I accepted the secondary seating assignments. I thought if I was patient enough and quiet enough, you would eventually see my value. I took a step back, creating a clear physical boundary between us. I am done trying to earn a place in a family that was never truly mine," I stated. "I am done setting myself on fire to keep you warm. My father left that money to me so I could build a sturdy, independent life. I will not use his legacy to bail you out of the consequences you deliberately created." Patricia looked up at me. Her makeup completely ruined her designer shawl slipping off her shoulders. She realized the well was completely dry. The useless daughter she publicly discarded had become the impenetrable fortress she could never breach again. "You need to leave now," I commanded, gesturing toward the front door. "The authorities will be looking for Gregory by Monday morning. I suggest you spend the weekend figuring out where you are going to live when the bank forecloses on the Coral Gables estate." She slowly pushed herself off the floor. She did not offer another tearful plea. She did not attempt another manipulation. The unyielding arithmetic of her new reality silenced her completely. She gathered her ruined shawl, walked out of my apartment, and disappeared into the dark stairwell. I closed the heavy wooden door, engaging the deadbolt lock. I leaned my forehead against the cool, solid wood and let out a long breath. The physical confrontation was over. The toxic elements were permanently expelled from my sanctuary. But the grand finale of their destruction was only just beginning. The weekend would bring a relentless tidal wave of corporate panic, and the incoming 72-hour fallout would expose their fraudulent empire to the entire Miami high society. The margin call was coming due, and the public reckoning would be swift, absolute, and entirely inescapable. The sun rose over the Atlantic Ocean on Monday morning, casting a deceptive golden light across the manicured lawns of Coral Gables. By 9 o'clock, a designated courier vehicle parked in the circular brick driveway of the sprawling Mediterranean estate. The driver stepped out and handed a thick sealed envelope directly to the housekeeper. The enclosed document bore the urgent red seal of a prominent international banking institution. The 72-hour financial fallout had officially begun. The letter contained a formal margin call. The bank required a staggering $10 million capital injection to stabilize the over-leveraged portfolio. Because the primary operating ledgers were locked tight, Gregory could not simply wire funds from a secondary corporate shell. He lacked liquid cash. He only possessed physical trophies bought with borrowed money. His entire identity was tied up in assets he did not truly own. Gregory spent Tuesday morning trapped inside his opulent home office. He dialed elite yacht brokers and luxury vehicle dealerships. He attempted to quietly liquidate his prized possessions before the rumor mill caught wind of his distress. But Miami is a remarkably small interconnected town when it comes to extreme wealth. The brokers heard the elevated panic in his voice. They smelled the undeniable scent of desperation. They knew the institutional lenders were preparing to seize everything by Friday afternoon. A prospective buyer offered 30 cents on the dollar for his custom-built Italian yacht. Gregory possessed zero leverage to negotiate a better deal. He accepted the humiliating lowball offer, signing away his flagship status symbol just to keep the corporate lawyers at bay for another 24 hours. Later that same afternoon, 2 heavy-duty tow trucks rolled up the pristine driveway. The drivers secured heavy steel chains to the axles of his imported sports cars. The loud mechanical grinding of the winches echoed through the quiet, affluent neighborhood as the vehicles were dragged away. The news bled out into the public sphere with astonishing speed. The same affluent guests who attended the retirement gala, the individuals who drank his imported champagne and applauded his cruel speech, now gathered at the exclusive country club to dissect his ruin. They whispered over expensive lunches. They exchanged text messages detailing the rapid asset foreclosures. They erased his phone number from their digital contact lists. The high society ecosystem rejected a failing member with ruthless efficiency. The fake kingdom Gregory constructed dissolved into a cautionary tale told by people who previously worshipped his success. Patricia could not endure the swift social humiliation. The silent ringing of her phone became deafening. The charity board members who used to seek her approval now ignored her electronic messages. The women who complimented her emerald gown at the Ritz-Carlton were currently mocking her downfall on the private tennis courts. She packed 3 designer suitcases on Wednesday afternoon. She walked out the grand double doors of the sprawling mansion knowing the bank would soon change the heavy brass locks. She checked into a generic mid-scale hotel located near the interstate highway. The room featured beige walls and standard industrial furniture. It was a sterile, lonely box filled with the constant drone of passing traffic. She sat on the edge of the stiff mattress, surrounded by her expensive luggage, realizing her carefully curated identity was entirely gone. The contrast between her custom silk wardrobe and the cheap polyester bedsheets was a harsh physical reminder of her new reality. She traded her loyal daughter for a grand illusion, and the illusion just evicted her. The financial collapse represented only the initial phase of their punishment. Harrison Sterling fulfilled his professional promise. He forwarded the high-resolution photograph of the forged trust amendment directly to the state prosecutor's office. The criminal investigation opened immediately. On Thursday morning, federal agents wearing dark windbreakers arrived at Gregory's corporate headquarters in downtown Miami. They carried empty cardboard boxes into the gleaming glass tower to confiscate his hard drives and physical accounting ledgers. The panicked employees watched as the authorities dismantled the fraudulent real estate empire piece by piece. The formal charge was severe breach of fiduciary duty, compounded by attempted wire fraud. Gregory faced a lengthy, highly publicized trial and the very real prospect of a federal prison sentence. His arrogant bluster was replaced by a terrifying permanent silence. While the city burned around them, I drove my old Honda Civic out to the quiet wetlands. The transition was profound. I left the concrete skyline behind and entered the sprawling green expanse of the Florida Everglades. I put on my heavy rubber wading boots and stepped into the cool, dark water. The swamp did not care about fluctuating interest rates or seized yachts. It operated on a slow, ancient, unbreakable rhythm. I spent the week charting the migratory patterns of wading birds and collecting soil samples from the deep mangrove roots. The physical labor grounded my spirit. The bright sun warmed my shoulders, and the ambient sounds of nature replaced the toxic noise of my former family. I felt a deep, resonant peace taking root in my chest. I did not monitor the local news channels to gloat over Gregory's televised downfall. I did not drive past the generic highway hotel to watch Patricia suffer in isolation. I simply let the arithmetic finish its necessary work. They dug a deep, treacherous hole, and gravity finally pulled them inside. I found genuine solace in my routine, measuring the slow, steady pulse of an environment that heals itself through natural cycles. Months passed in this quiet, steady rhythm. The dust eventually settled over the ruins of their artificial empire. I used a small, calculated fraction of my secure trust to establish a permanent environmental preservation grant focusing on restoring damaged coastal habitats. My dedicated conservation work caught the attention of a major philanthropic board based in Miami. They organized a prestigious winter gala to honor the new initiative and raise further awareness for the wetlands. I received an elegant, heavy cardstock invitation to attend the event as the primary guest of honor. It was a beautiful validation of my honest, honorable profession. But Miami society remains a small, closed circle. A desperate ghost from my past managed to secure a single ticket to the exact same event. The quiet peace I cultivated in the marshes was about to face one last unexpected test under the bright ballroom lights. 6 months drift past the chaos of that humid autumn. The harsh, glaring heat of the Florida summer yields to a crisp, clear December evening. The historic Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables hosts the inaugural Coastal Preservation Gala. The venue features soaring, hand-painted ceilings and towering stone archways. It projects a quiet, enduring elegance. There are no tacky ice sculptures sweating under artificial spotlights. There are no sycophants laughing at cruel jokes to secure a real estate contract. I arrive at the main entrance. I hand my keys to the valet and walk up the wide stone steps. The transition is profound. I do not have to search for my name squeezed into the bottom margin of a secondary guest list. The senior event director greets me at the door with a warm, genuine smile. She escorts me directly into the main ballroom. I am the primary guest of honor tonight. A calculated fraction of my secure trust established a permanent grant that recently saved 3,000 acres of vulnerable marshland from commercial paving. I wear a deep sapphire gown. It possesses clean, tailored lines and rests comfortably against my skin. I do not wear any heavy diamonds. I do not need superficial armor anymore. The high society figures who once averted their eyes when I walked past now approach me with extended hands. They offer genuine respect. They discuss ecological preservation and sustainability. They do not ask about my blue-collar job with a sneer. They ask for my professional insight. I stand near a beautiful display of native Florida orchids, enjoying a glass of sparkling water. The ambient string quartet plays a soft, melodic tune. A figure emerges from the periphery of the room, moving with a slow, hesitant physical cadence. I almost do not recognize my own mother. Patricia looks 20 years older. The radiant, aggressive confidence that once defined her entire existence is entirely gone. She wears a muted beige dress from several seasons ago. The fabric hangs loosely over her frail frame. Her neck and wrists are bare, stripped of the heavy gold and emerald jewelry she used to flaunt. She secured a discount ticket to this event through a former charity acquaintance, likely enduring countless humiliating whispers just to walk through the doors. She stops 3 feet away from me. She does not attempt to close the distance. She clutches a small plain purse tightly against her stomach. Her eyes are rimmed with red, carrying the hollow, exhausted look of a person who has spent the last 6 months surviving a relentless barrage of legal and social evictions. "Mia," she says, her voice trembling, barely audible over the string quartet. "You look beautiful." I thank her, keeping my tone polite and measured. I do not feel any residual anger burning in my chest. The venom washed away a long time ago, leaving behind a clean, sterile void. Patricia looks down at her worn shoes. Gregory signed the plea agreement. She whispers the words, tumbling out of her mouth like a heavy confession. He is going away to a federal facility next month. The bank finalized the foreclosure on the estate. I am living in a small rented apartment near the airport. I have nothing left, Mia. The silence is unbearable. She raises her head. A single tear escapes her eye, tracing a slow path down her pale cheek. "I am so sorry," she cries. "I was blind to the man he was. I was cruel to you. I chose the glamour and I lost my soul. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I am drowning. A small loan would help me secure a better lease. Just enough to get me back on my feet. I want to be your mother again." I look at the woman standing before me. I see the profound, tragic reality of her situation. She is a casualty of her own superficial greed. She wants financial rescue disguised as maternal reconciliation. She hopes the warm environment of the charity gala will soften my resolve. I offer her a gentle, sad smile. "I forgive you, Patricia," I say, ensuring my voice carries firm, unyielding clarity. I release the resentment because carrying it only poisons my own water, but forgiveness does not equal access. She blinks, the remaining hope draining from her exhausted eyes. "You made your choices." I continue, my words landing like heavy stones, forming a permanent wall between us. "You built your house on sand and you watched it wash away. I am using my father's legacy to build things that last. I will not give you a loan. I will not invite you to Sunday brunch. I wish you peace in your new life, but you will have to navigate it without me." Patricia absorbs the finality of the boundary. She does not argue. She does not throw a theatrical tantrum. The arithmetic of the situation leaves no room for negotiation. She nods once, a slow, defeated physical gesture. She turns around and walks toward the exit, disappearing into the shadows of the arched stone hallway. The chapter closes permanently. My phone vibrates gently inside my small clutch. I retrieve the device and glance at the illuminated screen. It is an automated digital receipt from the local community college. Madison has officially paid her tuition for the upcoming spring semester using the strict living stipend I authorize each month. The constructive consequence is holding firm. My younger sister no longer wears pristine silk jumpsuits on chartered yachts. She wears practical scrubs, working 40 hours a week as a receptionist at a busy dental clinic. She complains constantly about the harsh fluorescent lighting and the demanding patients. She hates the meager paycheck, but she is learning the undeniable value of hard, honest labor. She passed her initial financial literacy exams last week. She is taking her very first painful steps toward actual adulthood. She is surviving without a fraudulent safety net. A gentle chime echoes through the ballroom. The event director steps up to the main podium and taps the microphone. She welcomes the guests and begins detailing the remarkable success of the new Wetlands Preservation Initiative. She speaks about the vital importance of protecting the deep hidden root systems that keep the Florida coastline intact during severe storms. She calls my name. The 200 guests rise to their feet. The applause is loud, genuine, and sustained. There are no security guards marching toward me. There are no vicious insults hissed into my ear. I walk toward the stage with my head held high. My heels strike the polished wooden floor, beating a calm, victorious rhythm. I step up to the podium and look out over the sea of smiling faces. I see a room full of people who recognize my true worth. I stand in the exact center of the spotlight, entirely unburdened by my past. True strength is not enduring endless abuse in the dark. It is not shrinking yourself to fit into a tiny corner of someone else's fake kingdom. True strength is recognizing the vast, unyielding power you hold inside and taking up the exact amount of space you deserve. If you are listening to this right now and you recognize the familiar heavy sting of being treated like a disposable background character in your own family, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You are not overly sensitive. You are not the difficult burden they claim you are. Their inability to see your value is a reflection of their own broken lenses. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You have the absolute right to pack your bags, withdraw your energy, and build a brand new foundation somewhere else. You hold the power to stop waiting for an invitation to a table that only serves poison. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Have you ever faced a similar crossroad? Have you ever had to choose between keeping a toxic peace and reclaiming your own dignity? Drop a comment below and share your story with me. I read every single one. If this narrative resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to Eldenly Stories. We have many more journeys of survival and boundary setting waiting for you in the videos linked on the screen. Take care of yourself. Stand firm in your truth, and remember that every beautiful, enduring thing in this world always starts with a solid foundation. In modern American culture, the concept of the family unit is often wrapped in an idealized, almost untouchable mythology. We are frequently handed a cultural script insisting that family is everything, a sentiment that is routinely weaponized to demand unconditional loyalty at the expense of an individual's mental and emotional well-being. However, the profound narrative we have just explored dismantles this toxic mythology, offering a vital reflective lesson about self-worth, the deceptive illusion of wealth, and the supreme importance of establishing ironclad boundaries. At its core, the story highlights a deep tension in contemporary American society: the conflict between performative status and authentic, honest labor. We live in an era where social media optics and extreme wealth often dictate a person's perceived value. The antagonists in these narratives construct fragile empires built entirely on borrowed credit, vanity titles, and the desperate approval of the social elite. They view hard, meaningful work as a blue-collar embarrassment because it does not fit their fabricated aesthetic of limitless luxury. The key lesson here is a reclamation of genuine integrity. True dignity is rooted in self-reliance, practical skills, and personal character, not in the designer logos on our clothing or the prestigious zip codes of our real estate. Furthermore, the narrative forces a critical reevaluation of what it means to be emotionally strong. For generations, strength within the family dynamic was falsely equated with silent endurance. It meant sitting quietly at the smaller table, swallowing passive-aggressive insults, and absorbing the pain simply to maintain a polite facade. The turning point in this story reflects a modern psychological awakening. Enduring abuse is not a measure of maturity. True empowerment is recognizing that you do not have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Every individual has the inherent right to claim their dignity and take up the space they deserve. In a society deeply intertwined with capitalism, money is frequently weaponized within toxic family structures to control and marginalize dissenting voices. The golden child archetype represents the ultimate casualty of this entitlement, a person shielded from the real world, handed unearned prestige, and ultimately paralyzed by their lack of resilience. By severing this endless supply of unearned wealth and mandating real-world effort as a condition for future support, the protagonist delivers a masterclass in accountability. This shatters the American illusion of the carefree trust fund lifestyle, reinforcing that no amount of leveraged money can replace the necessity of basic survival skills and personal responsibility. The most striking takeaway is found in how justice is ultimately served. The protagonist does not engage in theatrical screaming matches or vindictive acts of revenge. Instead, she applies the cold, logical arithmetic of accountability. By legally withdrawing her foundational support, she simply allows the natural consequences of her abuser's actions to take their inevitable course. This mirrors a growing cultural understanding that boundaries are not punishments, they are essential protections. Ultimately, the triumphant resolution is not the public humiliation of the toxic family, even if that provides a deeply satisfying narrative conclusion. The real victory is the protagonist's quiet drive away from the chaos. It is the profound realization that a chosen life built on a solid, load-bearing foundation of truth and self-respect will always outlast a gilded mansion built on lies. In a culture that often equates extreme volume and visible wealth with power, this story serves as a powerful reminder that the quietest, most steadfast boundary is the ultimate declaration of freedom.